If you live in modern America, you know the rules by now. We're all supposed to follow the law unless it's immigration law or any other policy the anointed leaders of the left happen to dislike.
This is the most heinous criminal act I've ever seen.
Investigators with the Nassau County Police Department say 31-year-old Tommy Vladim Alvarado-Ventura was known to police for his past criminal history, his admitted affiliation with the notorious and violent Salvadorian gang MS-13, and for making it back onto U.S. soil time and time again after being repeatedly deported.
He was deported in 5 years 4 times, and since 2011 he's wandered the streets of Nassau County, free, and that is deeply disturbing. You have a little baby who, just talking about this makes me nauseous, a little baby who will never ever recover from the injuries she's recovered at the hands of this monster.
Investigators claim Alvarado-Ventura sexually assaulted the 2-year-old daughter of his girlfriend, then continued his violent crime spree. Police allege he punched, kicked, and stabbed a woman at a local bar while arguing over a drug deal. Then they say he went back to his girlfriend's apartment where he allegedly assaulted and stabbed her after she confronted him about her daughter's injuries. Representatives with the Department of Homeland Security tell Fox Alvarado-Ventura is a national of El Salvador and had been removed by the agency's Enforcement and Removal Operations Team, known as ERO, in 2006, 2009, 2010, and 2011. Issuing this statement, which reads in part, ERO plans to seek prosecution in this case within the U.S. District Court on felony reentry charges, which is punishable by up to 20 years in prison. The little girl and 2 women remain hospitalized, recovering from their injuries.
Obviously, it's tragic, but it's also hard to believe this could have happened. The man was deported 4 times, 2,000 miles away from Nassau County. How do you think he got back?
It's obviously a significant problem when over a 5-year period of time this individual was arrested multiple times and deported 4 separate occasions, that he was even here to commit this very evil act.
I'm merely saying that if someone's here illegally, the crime is by definition preventable. It would have been prevented if he hadn't been here, and he shouldn't be here, and he should have been deported, and he should have been kept out of the country by definition. So it didn't need to happen. That's why it's a different level of frustration when we see crimes like that. Do you understand?
I do understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, there are lots of undocumented immigrants who are trying to get legal status. They could become legal if they marry a U.S. citizen or the laws change. So to have this mindset of trying to deport all undocumented immigrants because they're likely to commit crimes is, again, unworthy and unbecoming of who we are as Americans.
But and thanks for the lecture on who we are, but I don't think that anyone is suggesting deporting all illegal immigrants, even this administration, as you know, since you've been following it. And I don't think, again, anyone's saying they're all criminals, but the DEA has wanted lists for drug fugitives. 83% of them are foreign-born. In these cities, Seattle, New York, Philadelphia, Dallas, and New Jersey, jurisdiction of New Jersey, there are no American-born fugitives on the list, not one. They're all immigrants.
I'm not sure about these statistics, Tucker, but there are studies that go the other way.
From the DEA website today.
That immigrants have less proclivity to commit crimes.
Just 2 weeks ago, we were involved in a case with the Eastern District of New York, where 2 young girls were killed in Brentwood, Long Island. And a significant number of the subjects, all MS-13 gang members, were all undocumented aliens.
This is a corrupt, broken system of which lawful citizens and residents of this country are the victims.
So it's not your job to enforce the borders. It's very far from your job, and you seem to be dealing with the consequences of not doing it. Do you wish you had some help from the federal government here?
It's obviously, we believe the federal government's become more aggressive in dealing with these criminals that are undocumented aliens. And that's what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here tonight is an individual that created a situation where a 2-year-old will have to live with significant emotional and physical injuries for the rest of her life. And it's unfortunate that he was even here to commit this, heinous, horrific act.
Yeah, it should have been preventable in that sense. Now, there's a lot of politics around this, and I know you're serving in law enforcement. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable situation. But will you concede that immigration policy does play a role in this crime and crimes like it?
You know, it's absolutely the policy. In Nassau County, our position is that we will provide assistance. We will abide by those administrative detainers at the request of ICE, and we'll hold those people for the allotted 48 hours in Nassau County. You know, that is what we're there. You know, obviously, trust is a top concern of the Nassau County Police Department, and every day we focus on improving that trust. You know, we won't, you know, ask the immigration status of anyone that is a victim or a witness to a crime, but these are criminals that we really do have to focus on.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, from January 28th through February 3rd, 206 criminally charged illegal aliens were released nationwide by law enforcement, despite hold requests placed on them by ICE. Of those 206 released aliens, 142 were released by a single sheriff. Her name is Sally Hernandez, and she's in Travis County, Texas, where Austin, the state capital, is. The released aliens face charges that include sexual assault, robbery, and domestic violence. The elected sheriff, whose job it is to uphold the law, enforce the law, is in fact ignoring the law in Travis County, Texas. Is that true?
It's exactly right. It's posing great danger because she has knowingly released from jail in Travis County people who have been either convicted of or accused of serious felonies such as sexual assault of a minor. She's put right back out onto the streets.
This is Sheriff Sally Hernandez, known as Sanctuary Sally.
Sanctuary Sally.
What's the motivation here? Why would a sheriff want to release dangerous people back to the community?
She campaigned on and got elected as sheriff in Travis County this last year on the promise she would not enforce sanctuary city laws, or she would not enforce ICE detainers. And so she campaigned on the promise of not enforcing the law.
Why do they never do this with like tax evasion or seatbelt laws or something I might benefit from?
Because it doesn't fit within the paradigm of the liberal ideology.
The community of Rockville, Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C., in a state of shock after a 14-year-old girl allegedly raped by two immigrant students in a high school bathroom.
Police say they have ample evidence that the accused illegal immigrants Henry Sanchez Milan and Jose Montano are guilty, but Sanchez now has a squad of lawyers saying that he is in fact innocent. There are reports that you all plan to argue at your firm that the rape was in fact consensual. Two men, one of them a legal adult at 18, the other 17, and a 14-year-old girl in a high school bathroom. How could that in any sense be consensual?
The preliminary indications we have was this was a consensual encounter, not a rape in any sense.
Between two guys, 17 and 18, and a 14-year-old girl in a high school bathroom. I mean, you'll pardon me if I seem astonished that you would be bold enough to assert something like that. That seems insane.
Well, you know, it just seems that the physical evidence is not there. There's no scratches, there's no bruises, there's no injuries like that.
There's physical evidence of both a rape and sex assault, yes. She's absolutely adamant that she did not want this to happen whatsoever at all.
So is your argument going to be that she invited sex with two men in a bathroom at her high school in the middle of the day and then lied that it was rape?
Tucker, I think what you're going to find is as this case goes on, there is a lot more evidence that will come out. And all of us involved are ethically constrained from discussing details.
I think this is the depravity of the political class. They're basically willing to offer up their own citizens, 14-year-old schoolgirls, and sacrifice them on the altar of diversity and virtue signaling.
I'm sure there could be a number of questions asked about all three of the people involved in this. 5 days into it,
really?
You can't answer those questions.
What would the
That's why
questions
trials
be raised,
take several months.
What would the questions be raised about the 14-year-old girl who says that she was raped in the high school bathroom and apparently whose screams were heard by her classmates? What questions would you raise about her?
I don't know. I wonder what questions were raised about the accuser in the Duke lacrosse case, or what was raised on the Rolling Stone Virginia case.
This isn't the Duke lacrosse. I'm asking you a straightforward question. You're the one who brought it up. You said questions could be raised about her ominously, and I'm asking what questions?
Well, you just talked about the character and the different aspects of Mr. Sanchez. I think everyone involved, the person accused and the person making accusation, puts their character into play.
Man, you better be right about this, because if you're going to be impugning the character of a 14-year-old girl who says she was raped, other people say they heard her screams. I mean, to impugn her character, I mean, you really, before God, better be sure that you're on the right side of this.
You've got adult men, in this case, in this country illegally, sitting in the same classroom with teenage girls. Ultimately, as a parent, you got to wonder, who's sitting in the same classroom with my kid today?
Yeah, and this is in a culture where if you were to propose reading Huckleberry Finn, everyone would go bananas and demand a safe space.
So be honest, would you be comfortable having your 14-year-old girl in class with this guy?
I have 2 children. I live in Montgomery County. They're young children. They're not in school yet. But I want nothing but safety for my children, their friends, my family, and everyone in my community.
Right. Well, okay, we all do, but that's not answering the question. This specific guy, your client, would you feel comfortable having a loved one go to school with him?
I don't know him. I literally don't know him. And I can't begin to answer that question about a single specific individual.
There is no benefit to the citizens and legal residents of the United States in fetishizing mass illegal immigration. And shame on this county and the state of Maryland for going along with it.
In a new development today, Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan leveled a politically risky dig at deeply Democratic Montgomery County, the state's most populous.
Montgomery County is acting as a sanctuary county, and they are not cooperating with federal authorities. That's a big part of the problem.
That charge backed up by a DHS report released Monday that documents how Montgomery County ranks near the top of U.S. jurisdictions that decline ICE detainers. Meanwhile, the sponsor of a state bill that would officially make Maryland a sanctuary state is blaming what happened at Rockville High School on American culture.
Unfortunately, in this country, we suffer from a rape culture. The criminal justice system does not provide an environment, a level playing field for a victim to successfully bring a case.
She does not mention that many immigrants from Central America have escaped cultures where warring factions use rape as a systematic means of oppression and control.
No matter what the outcome of a trial, should there be one, proponents of strong immigration reform maintain that both of these men, both here illegally, need to be deported anyway because they crossed the border unlawfully.
You have said, look, his immigration status is irrelevant. But can you see why people don't think it is irrelevant? Because he was in and out of U.S. custody a bunch of times, federal custody and then state custody in Maryland, and he was let go. And now he's accused of a violent rape against a child. So if he had been deported, as he should have been legally, you'll concede, we wouldn't be here today. So why is his immigration status irrelevant? It sounds like it's very relevant to me.
His immigration status is irrelevant to whether or not he did it. And my job is to defend him and to try and get to the bottom of the facts of whether or not he did. So it isn't relevant to the issue of whether or not this occurred. And that is exactly my point in that answer.
Well, I mean, but he wouldn't have been in the school. He wouldn't have been accused. He wouldn't have retained you. The girl wouldn't have questions raised about her character if he hadn't been here, right?
Right. This also isn't the first sexual assault case where I've ever been hired for. And many of them are citizens, natural-born citizens. Right. So it's not an issue of whether or not people committing these crimes are immigrants. It's whether or not these crimes are being committed.
Well, people who already have broken a crime and shouldn't be here in the first place wouldn't have committed the crime if they weren't here. But maybe that's too obvious.
The 18-year-old was stopped in Texas a couple of months back, and they had the opportunity to turn him around, but because Barack Obama's policies were such, they wrote this guy a ticket and said, okay, someday you're going to see a judge.
Well, in light of the apparent atrocity in Rockville, we want to share a series of emails with you that were sent by the superintendent of Montgomery County, Maryland schools, a man who calls himself Dr. Jack R. Smith. He sent them to the parents who've placed their kids under his care. The emails are fascinating. They're a true showcase of his values. To Dr. Jack R. Smith, the worst crime imaginable is not sexual violence against a child, but naughty language he considers intolerant. An email sent just today, for example, he seems more upset by the aftermath of the alleged crime than by the rape itself. He lectures parents who have voiced their horror about the attack, warning them that, quote, far too many have crossed the line with racist, xenophobic calls and emails. If you don't like it, shut up, or we'll call the cops. Not only are those calls offensive, he says, but they're also somehow illegal. As he puts it, they will not be tolerated, and they'll be reported to the police of Montgomery County, who presumably have never heard of the First Amendment.
Every country has its share of rapists and murderers. That's one of the jobs Americans can do. You don't need to import additional people to do that.